Hello, this is April Holloway here of Holloway Legal DMV, here to answer your immigration questions. Remember, you could submit immigration questions to me on Facebook at Holloway Legal DMV or on Instagram, same address at Holloway Legal DMV. So let's get into the questions that we have for this week. First question, I got married in 2020. My husband refuses to work. He won't file my immigration documents unless I pay him, so we separated. Can I file on my own? Well, as a married person filing a spousal visa, no, you cannot file on your own. Your husband would have to participate in that, and you would have to be living as a married couple at that time. So if by chance you reconcile, then you can do a marriage visa. However, if you have been subject to any abuse during this relationship, financial, psychological, mental, emotional, or otherwise, you can have a private consultation to see if the abuse that you suffered rises to the level to qualify for what's called the Violence Against Women Act. If it does, you may be able to self-petition for residency as an abused spouse. As a side note, although it's called the Women Against Violence Act, this does qualify for men or other genders who are experiencing violence at the hand of their spouse, or if they're being abused by their spouse or resident parent or child as well. So keep that in mind. If you are suffering abuse in a spousal, parent, or child relationship, you may be eligible to self-petition for VAWA. Further evaluation would be required to see if you meet the standard. Let's move into question 2. I'm on J1. If I apply for asylum, does that affect my J1? So I see this question a lot with regards to J1 and F1. And the issue is when you're on a J1 visa or F1 visa, which is a student visa, they are non-immigrant intent. They are visas that say I do not plan to remain in the United States permanently. I'm only staying here for the purpose of this visa, to be a student, to be a worker under special conditions. When you apply for asylum, that indicates immigrant intent because you're saying, I'm afraid to return to my home country. I intend to remain in the United States. If you grant my application, I will apply for residency and remain here in the United States. So it's not possible to maintain a J1 F1 with non-immigrant intent at the same time that you apply for asylum. Will the company that you're working for allow you to continue working there on your EAD? Yes. Will the school that you're attending allow you to continue attending school? Yes. But will you be able to rely on having filed that for purposes of travel in the future while you have a pending asylum case? No, you will not. Let's move into the third question. I'm a U.S. citizen. My boyfriend has been deported twice. Is there a way to petition for him to come back to the United States? Okay, so filing a spousal petition is just the first part of the process of having your spouse become a resident. So can you file a petition for your boyfriend as the fiance or after you get married? Yes, you can file a petition. However, the next step would be consular processing because he's out of the country, and he would have to be forgiven for the 2 deportations. And it doesn't say here in the question, I'm assuming also 2 unlawful entries. There is a waiver that forgives people for an unlawful entry into the United States and for a deportation. Unfortunately, they only cover 1 entry. So the 601A does allow a person to apply for forgiveness if they're in the United States for an unlawful entry, and the 601 allows someone to apply for forgiveness if they're outside the country. With the I-212 waiver is also available for a person to apply for forgiveness for deportation. So it's a really complicated process, and somebody has 2 unlawful entries and 2 deportations without even getting into exactly what they were deported for has a pretty low chance of being able to come back to the United States. However, I would encourage you to have a personal evaluation with more detailed information to get a for sure response. And you can consult with a few different attorneys to be sure on which action you want to take, because different attorneys may give you different advice. It's not that anybody is wrong. Immigration is complicated and complex. some people may feel that you have an option that you aren't mentioned by another attorney who's just simply not willing to discuss that option. Also, in here, it says that you were considering moving to the home country. If you have the ability and means to do that, that is an option. I do like to remind people that while the United States is a good place to live for certain circumstances, for other circumstances, there are better places where you can live and have a good life. I lived myself in Mexico for a year, enjoyed the time that I was there. I know the situation that I'm in is completely different from the situation that another person would be in terms of their ability to reside safely in Mexico. But that is something to take into consideration. You may move to that home country, or you may together move to a different country altogether that's just not the United States and still be able to have a brilliant and beautiful life. Let's get into the next question. Can an asylum seeker travel to Hawaii? All right, so Hawaii is a part of the United States. So technically, an asylum seeker can travel to Hawaii. You have to check with TSA specifically on what their requirements are in terms of your identification that you have to provide in order to fly. The most conservative answer is that you should not fly outside the continental United States while your asylum case is pending, because the Customs and Border officers and TSA officers, they're not always familiar with exactly what asylum is. They may not understand your status. And so to avoid those kind of complications or issues of a plane being redirected, although the U.S. does have some territories, people ask about going to Puerto Rico a lot, my advice is to stay within the continental United States. I'd also note that Native Hawaiians right now are asking people not to come be tourists in Hawaii specifically because of infrastructural issues that they're having. So that's something also to take into consideration. Let's get into the next question. I'm not going to say the name of the country to keep this a little anonymous. I'm from blank on H-1B. The situation in my home country is very difficult. Can I apply for asylum? Yes. If you have fear to return to your home country, you may apply for asylum. The thing that you want to keep in mind is that just because a situation is difficult in your home country, it doesn't automatically mean that your asylum is going to be granted. Things that are general fear, general violence that would apply to anyone living in that country is typically not strong enough to qualify for asylum. You have to be able to tell a story of how that specifically applies to you and why you're afraid to remain in that country and how you would be targeted if you remained in that country or returned to that country. So just to give you an example, there are a lot of countries right now that are experiencing very heavy gang violence and some countries that are actively at war. So if you're from one of those countries, you might be afraid to live there and you want to seek asylum. However, you have to be able to show, why would the gang specifically target you? Is it because you have a disability? Is it because of your gender? Is it because you speak a certain language, or because you're a native person who's facing persecution on that basis? You need to be able to describe how you fit into a category that would be granted asylum, apart from the situation simply being difficult in your home country. Here's our last question for the day. We're ending on a good note. I received asylum approval last week. What's the next step to get my card? Congratulations on your asylum approval. I know it was a long, hard road, and it gets very difficult to tell the story of your fear to return to your home country over and over again to the border agent in your credible fear interview, to your attorney, to the judge. Sometimes people have to go even beyond that to give more details to more officials. So congratulations to you. So what you'll do now is, if you did not already receive your I-94 record, you will receive that. If you don't receive it by mail, then you may receive it by requesting an InfoPass appointment with USCIS. That I-94 record is really important because it shows that you have a lawful entry into the United States, the date on which you have a lawful entry. and you'll be able to use it in the future when you apply for your residency card, which you're eligible to apply for after you've been approved for asylum 1 year. Now, with your I-94, you should be able to work no problem in the U.S. However, some employers do still request that you have an employment authorization card, so you can apply for one based on your category of approved asylum. So again, congratulations. Now, if you have any immigration questions, you can submit those to me via Instagram or on Facebook. If you belong to any of the same Facebook asylum seeker or immigrant groups that I'm in, you may also tag me there to get a response to your questions a little bit faster. Otherwise, I'll be back on Instagram and Facebook to collect your questions and give you your answers in the next YouTube video. Thank you so much, and everybody have a great day.